On March 30th, U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said that the future leader of Syria should be determined by the people of Syria. This was a major policy statement made by the United States because essentially it took regime change off the table. This was also great news for Bashar al-Assad because combined with his recent Syrian military gains on the ground, he was in the strongest position he'd been in since the war in Syria began. The American public should ask themselves, though, why would just 5 days later Assad gas his own people? Without a thorough investigation, and less than 72 hours after the alleged chemical attack, American political leaders and the establishment media claimed that Bashar al-Assad carried out a sarin gas attack on April 4th. Hours after that, the United States launched 59 Tomahawk cruise missiles onto a Syrian airfield, killing 9 civilians, including 4 children in the Idlib province, and it was entirely based on unproven allegations. Common sense, historical facts, and circumstantial evidence suggest that it is highly unlikely that Assad was responsible for the gas attack. One might even be able to make the case that the attack was coordinated by the White Helmets, with neoconservatives providing the script. You might remember back in 2013, when US-supported anti-Assad forces started losing ground on the war in Syria. Bashar al-Assad claimed then that rebels were using chemical weapons in a last-ditch effort to regain their territory. It was at this time that Assad actually asked the United Nations to investigate his claims, and they agreed. Within days of the United Nations inspectors arriving in Syria, there was yet another chemical attack. With the United States media's report now and investigate later method to journalism, they were quick to blame Assad, and though it defied logic that he would use chemical weapons while the very people he called in to investigate them were in Syria at his invitation. Conservative columnist Pat Buchanan stated, "I would not understand or comprehend that Bashar al-Assad, no matter how bad a man he may be, would be so stupid as to order a chemical weapons attack on civilians in his own country when the immediate consequence might be that he would be at war with the United States. So this reeks of false flag operation." Former member of Congress Ron Paul pointed out that the group that's most likely to benefit from a chemical attack is Al-Qaeda. They ignite some gas, some people die, and they blame it on Assad. Russian President Vladimir Putin stated, "There's every reason to believe that sarin gas was used, not by the Syrian army, but by opposition forces to provoke intervention by their powerful foreign patrons who would be siding with the fundamentalists." So nonetheless, the Obama administration and other Western leaders blamed Assad, and talk of US military action was contemplated. Fortunately, journalists like Seymour Hersh put a halt to the war talk by revealing that it was indeed the US-supported rebels who used chemical weapons, weapons they received from Turkey, an ally to the United States. The sarin gas attack that just occurred in Syria is eerily similar to the attack that occurred in 2013. US-backed anti-Assad rebels are losing ground. A sarin gas attack occurs, and US politicians quickly blame Assad without an investigation. One difference between today and 2013 is that the United States military has actually bombed a Syrian military target in retaliation. Another difference is that this time, Russia is on the same side as Syria, and so the possibility of a confrontation with Russia is very real. The US announcement on March 30th that it would not seek regime change in Syria was a massive blow to neoconservatives, to liberal interventionists, to ISIS, to Al-Qaeda, and to all other anti-Assad factions who have been trying to oust him for years. In 2016 alone, the CIA reportedly spent over $1 billion supplying and training the rebel forces attempting to overthrow the Syrian government. The Assad opposition is willing to revert to any means necessary, as history showed us in 2013. It is conceivable that this week's chemical attack was perpetrated by one of those factions who saw the window of opportunity to oust Assad closing. The United States has a long-standing history of making false claims to go to war, such as the Gulf of Tonkin incident and the Iraq weapons of mass destruction claims, both of which led to major US wars. Given this, it's not inconceivable that the chemical weapons attack in Syria this week was a complete hoax, perpetrated by the White Helmets, with the goal of tricking the United States into taking military action against Assad, something the White Helmets have pushed for years. As Max Blumenthal points out, the white helmets who call for a military-imposed no-fly zone in Syria were founded in collaboration with a wing of the USAID, the wing that has promoted regime change around the world and have been provided with over $23 million in funding from that department. Money to the white helmets is just part of the $339 million that USAID has allotted for supporting activities that pursue a peaceful transition to a democratic and stable Syria. Clearly, the neocons and all anti-Assad forces have a lot more to gain from this week's chemical attacks than does Assad himself. And Assad has much more to lose than any of those groups. And this week's attack followed the same script used during the 2013 attack, and that attack was wrongly blamed on Assad, as we suspect this one is as well. Although it's too early to know what really happened, one of the possibilities is that the Syrian military bombed an al-Qaeda hideout, not knowing that chemical weapons were in the building, and the gas spread, killing people, as Russian officials have pointed out. But it is odd that the white helmets just happened to be on the ground and rapidly produced an HD video complete with a script that was read on most major media outlets within hours of the attack. Other than the people responsible for the alleged chemical attacks this week, nobody really knows what happened, including us. Now that the United States has attacked Syria, Russia's ally, the question is, will Russia back down? If they don't, we may look back at this week's attack as a flashpoint to the start of a military confrontation with Russia. And given that this could lead to World War III, we think it's worth the time to consider all possibilities, including the ones mapped out here today.